The cold metal chair pressed against Lee Hyun's back as he sat in the middle of the white room. His hands were locked in strange alien cuffs that glowed with blue light. The room had no windows, just smooth walls that seemed to pulse with their own soft glow. 3 large creatures sat across from him at a curved table that looked like it was grown rather than built. The biggest alien had 6 arms and eyes like a fly. Its skin was dark green and shiny, like wet leather. When it moved, Hyun could hear small clicking sounds, like someone tapping fingernails on glass. This was Commander Vextel of the Velakari Empire. The alien wore what looked like armor made from the same white material as the walls. To the left sat Captain Jexera. She looked like a walking crystal, her body made of clear blue stone that caught the light and threw it around the room in tiny rainbows. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a soft breeze. Her people were called the Nexari, and they came from the cold edge of the galaxy. The third alien was War Leader Thok. He looked like a giant lizard that had learned to walk on 2 legs. His scales were red and black, and when he breathed, small. Puffs of smoke came from his nose. His people, the Saurid Empire, were known for being fighters who loved battle more than anything else. Between them sat a small device that hummed quietly. Hyun knew it was a translator. Every word he said would be changed into their languages, and every word they said would become English in his ears. The device was the only reason they could talk at all. Commander Vextal leaned forward on 4 of his 6 arms. His big eyes focused on Hyun like a hunter watching prey. "Human," he said, and the translator made his voice sound cold and sharp. "We know your ship was found in our space. We know you were alone when we captured you. But we want to know something else." Hyun said nothing. He had been trained for this. During his years in the Korean Special Forces, they had taught him how to handle being captured. Stay quiet. Give only name, rank, and serial number. Wait for rescue or a chance to escape. But rescue was not coming. His ship, the Soul's Pride, was gone. His crew was dead. His daughter Nara had been on that ship. His friend Tae had been there too. They were all gone now, blown apart when the alien ships attacked. Hyun had stayed behind to make sure the escape pods got away safely. That was how he ended up here, in this white room, facing these 3 creatures who wanted something from him. "Your species has been fighting us for 15 years, Vextal continued. "At first we thought you would be easy to defeat. You have no natural weapons. You are not very strong. You cannot fly or breathe in space without help, but somehow you keep winning battles you should lose." Captain Jexera's crystal body caught the light as she moved. "We have studied your tactics. We have learned your languages. We have watched your ships fight ours. There is something we do not understand about humans." War Leader Thok slammed one of his clawed hands on the table. "Enough talk," he growled, and smoke puffed from his nose. "Ask him the question." Vexatal's eyes never left Hyun's face. "In our cultures, a warrior's worth is measured by one thing. How many enemies have you killed with your own hands? How many foes have fallen before you in battle? We call this the kill count. It is the most important number in a warrior's life." The alien commander sat back in his chair. "I have served in the Velakari military for 30 years. I have fought in the border wars, the crystal conflicts, and the Great Hunt. My personal kill count is 847 confirmed enemies. Each one died by my own hand or weapon." Jexera made a sound like breaking glass that Hyun realized was probably laughter. "Impressive, but not the highest here. My count stands at 1,215. Each enemy was absorbed into my crystal matrix before they died. I carry their memories with me always." Thok pounded his chest with both fists. "Ha! Children playing with toys. My count is over 2,000. I have eaten the hearts of my enemies and taken their strength into my own body. This is the Saurid way." They all looked at Hyun, waiting. The human sat quietly, his face showing nothing. Inside, he felt tired. So very tired. These aliens talked about killing like it was a game, like it was something to be proud of. They counted their dead enemies like trophies on a wall. "Human," Vextal said again. "We will show you respect if you answer truthfully. What is your kill count? How many enemies have you killed in battle?" Hyun closed his eyes. He thought about his wife, So Young, who had died in the first alien attack on Earth. He thought about his daughter, Nara, who had wanted to be an engineer, who had dreamed of building ships that could travel to other stars. He thought about his friend Tay, who had always made jokes even when things were bad, who had died trying to fix the engines while the ship fell apart around him. "My count," Hyun said quietly, opening his eyes to look at the three aliens. "You want to know my count?" "Yes," Vextal clicked. "Tell us. Do not be ashamed if it is low. Humans are new to war between the stars. We understand if your numbers are small." Hyun almost smiled. These creatures thought they understood war. They thought war was about two soldiers fighting each other with swords or claws or crystal spears. They thought it was about being brave and strong and fast. They had no idea what real war looked like. "I am Captain Lee Hyun," he said slowly. "Serial number 7749 Delta Kilo. I served in the Korean People's Army Special Forces before the war. When the aliens came, I joined the Earth Defense Corps." Yes, Thok hissed impatiently. "We know this. What is your kill count?" Hyun was quiet for a long moment. In his mind, he could see the faces of all the people he had served with. Captain Kim Won, who had taught him how to think like a soldier. Sergeant Choi Min, who had shown him everything about explosives and how to use them. Lieutenant Park Soo, who had died getting information to the right people. Commander Nam Gil, who had flown his ship into an enemy fleet to save a colony world, all dead now. All killed fighting these aliens who thought war was a game. "You want to know my kill count?" Hyun said again. His voice was still quiet, but something had changed in it. Something cold and hard. "You want to know how many of your people I have killed?" The three aliens leaned forward. Finally, they thought, the human would tell them his small number and they could laugh at how weak his species was. "I will tell you," Hyun said. "But first, let me ask you something. When you count your kills, do you only count the ones you killed with your own hands? Face to face? Looking into their eyes as they died?" "Of course," Vextal clicked. "That is the only way that counts. True warrior kills. Personal combat." Hyun nodded slowly. "I see. Then we count very differently." The room was quiet except for the soft humming of the translator device. Outside, Hyun could hear the sounds of the alien ship. Footsteps in the hallways, the hum of engines, the beeping of computers. "Tell us your number, human," Jexra chimed, her crystal body flashing with impatience. Hyun looked at each of the three aliens in turn. He thought about all the battles he had fought, all the operations he had been part of, all the times he had pushed a button or flipped a switch and watched enemy ships disappear in balls of fire. "My number," he said quietly, "is going to surprise you." Lee Hyun stared at the white ceiling of his cell and remembered the day everything changed. It had been a normal Tuesday morning in Seoul. He was having breakfast with his wife, So Young, and their daughter, Nara. The news was on the television, talking about some new space telescope that had found strange signals from outside the solar system. Nara had been excited about starting her engineering studies at the university. She wanted to design spaceships, she said, real ones that could take people to other worlds. So Young had laughed and told her to finish her breakfast first before she started building rockets. That was when the sky caught fire. The first alien ships had appeared without warning. Huge black triangles that blocked out the sun as they flew over the city. The emergency sirens started wailing, but it was too late. Beams of red light came down from the ships, and whole city blocks disappeared in flashes of heat and smoke. Hyun had been a soldier for 12 years before that day. He had served in the Korean Special Forces, trained in demolitions and urban warfare, but nothing had prepared him for watching alien weapons tear his world apart. The attack lasted only 6 hours. When it was over, Seoul was gone. So was Tokyo and New York and London and every other major city on Earth. 50 million people died in those 6 hours. So Young had been one of them. Hyun had been at his military base when the attack happened. He spent 3 days digging through the ruins of his neighborhood looking for his family. He found Nara hiding in the basement of their collapsed apartment building. She was hurt, but alive. So young was not. That was 15 years ago. 15 years of war between Earth and the aliens who called themselves the Velocari Empire. And their friends, the crystal beings called the Nexari, and the lizard people called the Saurid, and dozens of other alien races who thought humans would be easy to defeat. They had been wrong. Hyun closed his eyes and remembered his first real battle, the Second Battle of Busan, 3 months after the initial attack. The aliens had come back to finish what they started. They brought a massive fleet and landed thousands of soldiers in the harbor. Captain Kim Won had been in charge of the defense. He was an old soldier who had fought in 3 different wars before the aliens came. Kim had looked at the alien landing force and made a simple decision. "We cannot fight them ship to ship," Kim had said. "We cannot fight them soldier to soldier, but we can fight them the way humans have always fought when we are outnumbered." "How is that, sir?" Hyun had asked. Kim had smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "We cheat." The aliens had expected a normal battle. They thought the humans would line up their soldiers and ships and fight in the open like honorable warriors. Instead, Hyun and his team had spent 2 weeks before the battle planting explosives all around the harbor. Not just regular explosives, but special ones designed to crack the fuel tanks of the alien ships. When the Velocari fleet landed, Hyun had been hiding in a bunker 2 kilometers away. He had a simple device in his hands, a radio transmitter with 1 red button. Captain Kim had given it to him personally. "When I give the word," Kim had said, "you push that button. Do not think about it. Do not hesitate. Just push it." Hyun had watched through a periscope as the alien soldiers poured out of their ships. Thousands of them, all in black armor that gleamed in the sunlight. They moved like insects, fast and coordinated. They had energy weapons that could cut through tank armor like paper. The human defenders had opened fire first, drawing the aliens away from their ships. It looked like a normal battle, the kind the aliens expected. The humans were losing, falling, back under the superior alien firepower. That was when Captain Kim's voice had crackled over the radio. "Now, Hyun, do it now." Hyun had pushed the button. The harbor had disappeared in a ball of fire that could be seen from orbit. 43 alien ships had been vaporized instantly. The explosion had been so big that it had broken windows in cities 50 kilometers away. Later, intelligence had estimated that 67,000 alien soldiers had died in that explosion, all because Hyun had pushed 1 button. Captain Kim had found him afterward, sitting in the bunker and staring at the mushroom cloud rising from where the harbor used to be. "How do you feel?" Kim had asked. "I do not know, sir," Hyun had answered honestly. Kim had sat down next to him. "The aliens think war is about honor, about brave soldiers fighting face to face. They think it is about being strong and fast and clever in battle." "Is it not?" Hyun had asked. "No," Kim had said quietly. "War is about going home to your family. War is about making sure your people survive. Everything else is just stories we tell ourselves to make it easier." Kim had died 2 years later in the defense of Beijing. The aliens had learned to be more careful about clustering their ships together, but they had not learned the most important lesson about fighting humans. Humans did not fight to be honorable. They fought to win. After Busan, Hyun had been assigned to special operations. His job was simple: find ways to hurt the aliens that they would not expect. The enemy was stronger, faster, and had better technology. But they thought like warriors, not like soldiers. There was a difference. Warriors wanted glory, soldiers wanted victory. Hyun had learned to think like an engineer of destruction. Every alien base was a puzzle to be solved. Every alien fleet was a target to be eliminated. It did not matter if the solution was elegant or honorable. It only mattered if it worked. The Nexari had learned this lesson the hard way. Their crystal ships were beautiful and nearly indestructible. They could absorb energy weapons and turn them back on their attackers. They thought they were safe. Hyun had found their weakness by accident. Crystal, no matter how strong, could not handle certain kinds of vibrations. A simple sonic pulse at the right frequency could shatter their ships like glass windows. The Battle of Titan had been Hyun's idea. Instead of attacking the Nexari fleet directly, he had suggested hiding explosives inside asteroids and launching them at the enemy ships. When the asteroids hit, They had activated sonic devices that Hyun had designed himself. 14 Nexari ships had cracked apart like eggs. Over 200,000 crystal beings had died in the vacuum of space, their bodies floating like broken jewelry among the debris. The Saurid Empire had been even easier to fool. They were proud warriors who loved single combat. They had challenged the humans to meet them in battle, ship against ship, warrior against warrior. Hyun had accepted their challenge. Then he had filled a cargo ship with nuclear weapons and crashed it into the middle of their fleet. The explosion had taken out 37 Saurid battleships and their entire command structure. War leader Thok's predecessor had died in that blast, along with his entire family and clan. It had not been honorable. It had not been fair. But it had worked. That was the thing the aliens never understood about humans. Honor was a luxury for people who were winning. Humans had been losing from the first day of the war. They could not afford to be honorable, so they had learned to be something else instead. They had learned to be effective. Hyun opened his eyes and looked around his cell. Tomorrow the aliens would ask him again about his kill count. They wanted a number they could understand, something that fit into their ideas about how war worked. He was going to give them a number. But first, he needed to finish his current mission. The aliens thought they had captured him by accident. They thought his ship had been damaged, and he had been forced to surrender. They had no idea that he had been trying to get captured for 6 months. There were things about this ship that Earth needed to know, things that could only be learned from the inside. And there were things on this ship that needed to be destroyed. Hyun reached under his collar and felt the small device hidden there. It was no bigger than a coin, but it contained enough explosive to blow a hole in the ship's hull. He had dozens of them hidden in different places on his body. The aliens had searched him, but they had not found them all. They were too small, and they were made from materials that looked like normal human body implants to alien scanners, medical devices, artificial joints, pacemakers, things that would be normal for a soldier who had been fighting for 15 years. But they were not medical devices. They were bombs. Hyun smiled in the darkness of his cell. The aliens wanted to know his kill count. Soon they would become part of it. The next morning, they brought Hyun back to the White Room. The 3 aliens were waiting for him, but this time they were not alone. More creatures had joined them around the curved table. There was a tall, thin being that looked like it was made of metal and glass. Its body was silver and smooth, with joints that glowed blue when it moved. This was Tekvar of the Machine Collective, and its voice sounded like computers talking to each other. Next to it sat something that reminded Hyun of a giant octopus, but one that lived in air instead of water. Its skin was purple and wet, and it had 12 arms that moved constantly, never staying still. Commander Ixilth of the Deep Fleet had traveled far from the ocean worlds to be here. The last new alien was the strangest of all. It looked like a cloud of gas that had learned to hold a shape. Sometimes it was solid enough to sit in a chair, and sometimes Hyun could see right through it. Admiral Wisp of the Energy Beings rarely spoke, but when it did, its words came like whispers of wind. 6 different alien species, all sitting around one table to question one human. Hyun almost felt honored. Commander Vextal clicked his mandibles together. Human, yesterday you said your kill count would surprise us. We have brought our allies here to hear your answer. We are all curious about how humans measure their warriors. War leader. Thok slammed his clawed fist on the table again. Stop dancing around the question. Tell us your number. Hyun looked around the room slowly. Each of these aliens represented a different empire, a different way of thinking about war and conquest. But they all had one thing in common. They counted their kills like trophies. Before I answer, Hyun said, I want to understand how you count. Captain Jexra, when you say you have killed 1,215 enemies, what does that mean exactly? The crystal being flashed with light as she spoke. Each kill was personal combat. I faced them alone, crystal against weapon, mind against mind. I absorbed their life force as they died. Their memories became part of me. This is the Nexari way. And you, War Leader Thok? The lizard alien puffed smoke from his nostrils proudly. Each enemy fell to my claws or my blade. I looked into their eyes as life left them. I ate their hearts while they were still warm. I took their strength into my own body. 2,037 honorable kills. Tekvar's mechanical voice buzzed softly. My people count differently. We do not eat our enemies or absorb them. But each of my kills was a direct termination. I calculated their weaknesses, targeted their vital systems, and shut them down permanently. 1,893 confirmed eliminations. Commander Ixolth's 12 arms waved in complex patterns as she spoke. The Deep Fleet values the hunt above all else. My kills were all stalking victories. I tracked each enemy through space, cornered them in the deep dark between stars, and finished them when they had no escape. 1,612 successful hunts. Admiral Wisp's voice came like wind through leaves. Energy beings do not kill as solid creatures do. We drain the electrical impulses from our enemies' brains. Each death feeds our collective consciousness. I have personally drained 943 enemy minds. All 6 aliens looked at Hyun expectantly. He could see the pride in their strange faces. Each one thought their way of killing was the most honorable, the most pure. I see, Hyun said slowly. So all of your kills were personal. One enemy, one warrior. You faced them directly and defeated them in combat. Of course, Vextal clicked. How else would one count kills? Only cowards strike from a distance or use tricks to avoid honorable battle. Hyun nodded. That explains why you are all so confused. About humans. What do you mean? Jexra chimed. You think war is about honor, about proving who is the better warrior, about personal glory and individual achievement. Hyun leaned back in his chair as much as the restraints would allow. Humans stopped thinking about war that way a long time ago. Explain, Tekvar buzzed. Hyun closed his eyes and thought about his training. Not just military training, but history lessons. Stories about how humans had fought each other for thousands of years before the aliens came. 3,000 years ago, human warriors fought the way you do. They met on battlefields with swords and spears. They looked into each other's eyes as they fought. Every kill was personal and direct. We called this honor. He opened his eyes and looked at each alien in turn. Then we invented gunpowder. Suddenly, warriors could kill enemies from far away. They did not have to look into their eyes or see their faces. Some people said this was dishonorable, that it was cowardly. They were right, Thok growled. True warriors fight with claws and fangs, not with devices that strike from hiding. Maybe, Hyun said, but the warriors who used gunpowder won their battles, the ones who clung to honor, and tradition died. So we kept making better weapons. Cannons that could destroy entire armies, ships that could fire across oceans, bombs that could level cities. The aliens were listening now, trying to understand. By the time we learned to travel between planets, war had become something very different for humans. It was not about individual warriors proving their worth. It was about nations and governments trying to destroy each other completely. We called it total war. Hyun's voice remained calm and steady, but something cold had entered it. In our last great war before you came, we dropped 2 bombs that each destroyed an entire city. Hundreds of thousands of people died in seconds. The war ended not because one side's warriors were braver or stronger, but because one side could kill more people faster. The room was very quiet. Admiral Wisp's gaseous form had stopped moving entirely. That is monstrous, Ixolth whispered, her 12 arms coiling in distress. How do you count honor in such killing? We do not, Hyun said simply. We count effectiveness. We count results. We count who goes home to their family and who does. Not. Vextal's compound eyes focused intensely on Hyun. But surely your military still recognizes individual achievement. Your best warriors must be honored for their personal kill counts. Hyun almost laughed. Commander, in human military doctrine, if a soldier has a high personal kill count, it usually means he is doing his job wrong. What? A soldier's job is not to kill enemies personally. A soldier's job is to complete the mission with minimum casualties to his own side. If you are close enough to see the enemy's face when you kill them, you are probably in more danger than you should be. He thought about Captain Kim Won, who had died in Beijing. Kim had never killed anyone personally, as far as Hyun knew. But Kim had planned operations that saved millions of human lives and ended thousands of alien ones. My commanding officer used to say that the best victory is the one where the enemy dies and you never even see them. They die and you go home safe to your family. That is what matters. Tekvar's mechanical head tilted to one side. Then how do you measure a warrior's worth? How do you know who your best fighters are? We measure results, Hyun said. Did the mission succeed? Did our people survive? Did the enemy's plan fail? Individual glory is less important than collective victory. This is madness, Thok snarled. Without personal honor, without the glory of individual combat, what separates a warrior from a common murderer? Hyun looked directly at the lizard, alien. Results, he said again. A murderer kills for personal reasons. A soldier kills to protect his people and defeat his nation's enemies. The method does not matter, only the outcome. The aliens exchanged looks that their translators could not fully convey. They were beginning to understand that they had been thinking about humans all wrong. So, Vextal said slowly, when we ask for your kill count, you do not think about enemies you have faced in personal combat. No, Hyun confirmed. I think about every enemy death that resulted from my actions, directly or indirectly. Every mission I completed, every target I destroyed, every time I pushed a button or gave an order that led to enemy casualties. And that number is? Jexra asked, though her crystal form had dimmed as if she was afraid of the answer. Hyun smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Much higher than yours? Hyun looked around the room at the 6 alien faces staring at him. Some had eyes, some had sensors, and some had things he could not even name. But they were all focused on him with the same intensity. You want specific numbers? He said. Let me start with something simple. My first major operation after the Battle of Busan. The translator device hummed quietly as Hyun spoke. He wondered if it could properly translate the weight of what he was about to tell them. The Nexari Crystal Fleet had taken control of Jupiter's moon Europa. They were using it as a base to attack our supply ships. The moon's ice was perfect for their crystal technology. They could grow new ships right there in the factories they built. Captain Jexra's crystal body flickered with interest. I remember this battle. The humans attacked with only 12 ships against our fleet of over 100. It should have been an easy victory for us. It was an easy victory, Hyun said. Just not for you. He closed his eyes and remembered standing in the briefing room on Mars Station. General Park Soo had been explaining the mission to a room full of soldiers and engineers. The plan had seemed impossible then. The problem was that your ships were too strong, Hyun continued. Our weapons could not punch through crystal armor. Your energy shields could absorb anything we shot at you and fire it back twice as hard. A direct assault would have been suicide. So what did you do? Tekvar buzzed, his mechanical form leaning forward. We studied your technology. We learned how crystal ships work, and we found the weakness. Hyun opened his eyes and looked directly at Jexra. Crystal is strong, but it has rules. It grows in specific patterns. It resonates at specific frequencies, and if you hit it with exactly the right vibration, it shatters, Jexra whispered, her form dimming. My job was to design the sonic charges, small devices that could be attached to the hulls of your ships without being detected. When activated, they would produce sound waves at the exact frequency needed to break your crystal matrix. Hyun paused, remembering the months of work it had taken. Testing different crystals, recording their resonant frequencies, building devices small enough to hide, but powerful enough to destroy ships the size of skyscrapers. The hard part was getting close enough to attach them. Your sensors could detect any human ship long before it got within range, so we did not use ships. War Leader Thok's eyes narrowed. What did you use? Asteroids. We hollowed out chunks of rock and ice, put human soldiers inside with life support systems, and launched them at your moon base. To your sensors, they looked like natural debris. Space is full of rocks. Commander Ixilth's 12 arms writhed with agitation. Impossible. No human could survive such a journey. The radiation, the cold, the isolation. 17 humans volunteered for the mission, Hyun said quietly. I was one of them. We spent 3 weeks floating through space inside those asteroids, waiting to get close enough to your fleet. He remembered the darkness inside the hollow asteroid. the smell of recycled air and fear, the constant cold that seemed to seep into his bones. Lieutenant Nam Gil had been with him, telling jokes to keep their spirits up. Sergeant Yoon Jae had been in another asteroid, along with 15 other volunteers. When we finally reached Europa, we had to wait for the right moment. Your ships were arranged in a defensive formation around the moon. We needed to attach sonic charges to at least half of them to make the plan work. How did you get to our ships without being detected? Jexra asked, though her voice sounded like she did not want to know the answer. We did not. Your sensors detected us as soon as we left our hiding places. Your ships opened fire immediately. Most of my team died in the first 30 seconds. Hyun's voice remained steady, but inside he felt the familiar ache of loss. Nam Gil had been vaporized by a crystal energy beam just meters away from him. Yoon Jae had made it to his target ship but died when the sonic charge he was placing exploded prematurely. But some of us made it. We attached our devices to 7 of your largest ships. That was enough. Enough for what? Admiral Wisp asked, his gaseous form rippling with curiosity. When I activated the sonic charges, those 7 ships did not just break apart. The crystal matrix that held them together shattered completely. But crystal technology is all connected, remember? When one crystal breaks, the vibration spreads to other crystals nearby. Jexra's body began to flash rapidly, like a warning light. No, you could not have known. We knew exactly what would happen, Hyun said. The shattering effect spread from ship to ship, like dominoes falling down. Your entire fleet began to break apart at the same time. He could still see it in his memory. The beautiful crystal ships suddenly developing cracks like spider webs, then the cracks widening, then entire sections of hull falling away in glittering shards, and finally, the ships collapsing in on themselves like houses of glass hit by hammers. 14 ships destroyed in the first wave. Then the vibration reached your factories on the moon's surface. All of your crystal-growing equipment shattered at once. The explosion was visible from Earth. The room was completely silent except for the humming of the translator. Final count for the Europa operation, Hyun said. 96 Nexari ships destroyed. Estimated crew casualties, 212,000. Ground facilities eliminated. Total industrial capacity of Europa. Human casualties, 16 soldiers, including most of my team. Jexra's crystal form had gone completely dark. 200,000 of my people. That was Tuesday, Hyun said simply. Wednesday was the Beijing defense. Vexatal's compound eyes widened. The Beijing defense was you? Hyun nodded. The Velokari Empire had sent its largest fleet to destroy Earth's capital. 300 ships, including the super dreadnought Pride of Velok. Your flagship, Commander. I remember seeing it in the intelligence reports. The insect alien's mandibles clicked nervously. That ship was unsinkable. It had shields that could absorb the energy of a small star. Its armor was 30 meters thick. It carried 50,000 of our finest warriors. It also had a weakness, Hyun said. Nuclear reactors are powerful, but they are also dangerous, especially when someone who understands explosives gets close to them. He remembered the mission briefing for Beijing. The human fleet had been outnumbered 10-1. Earth's orbital defenses had already been destroyed in the first wave of attacks. The city below was being evacuated, but there was nowhere for 8 million people to go. My mission was simple. Get aboard your flagship and sabotage the reactor core. The explosion would hopefully take out enough of your fleet to save the city. How did you get aboard? Tekvar asked. Our security systems were perfect. They were perfect for stopping enemy ships and armed soldiers, Hyun agreed. They were not designed to stop a single human in a maintenance pod pretending to be space debris. It had been the longest 2 hours of Hyun's life. Floating through the battle in a tiny pod that barely had enough air for the journey, watching human ships explode around him as he drifted toward the massive alien flagship, knowing that if anyone spotted him, he would be vaporized instantly. I attached myself to your ship's hull and cut through the armor with a plasma torch. It took 6 hours to burn through 30 meters of metal. By the time I got inside, the battle was almost over. Earth's fleet was gone. Your ships were moving into position to destroy Beijing. And then? Vextal asked, though his voice sounded like he already knew the answer. I found the reactor core. It was beautiful, actually. A miniature star contained by magnetic fields. Clean. Efficient. almost artistic in its design. Hyun paused. I placed 12 fusion charges around the containment system and set them on a timer. You destroyed the pride of Velok, Vextal whispered. I destroyed your entire fleet, Hyun corrected. When your flagship's reactor went critical, it released enough energy to overload every other ship within 50 kilometers. The chain reaction spread through your formation like wildfire. He could still see it. The blinding flash as the massive ship tore itself apart. Then the secondary explosions as other ships lost power and crashed into each other. In less than 10 minutes, the most powerful fleet in Velokari history had become a cloud of glowing debris. Final count for the Beijing defense, Hyun said. 294 Velokari ships destroyed. Estimated casualties, 1.8 million. Human casualties. The entire Earth defense fleet, plus one demolitions expert who barely made it to an escape pod in time. The aliens stared at him in shock. Tekvar's mechanical head was twitching as his computer brain tried to process the numbers. That is impossible, War Leader Thox snarled. No single warrior could achieve such destruction. You are right, Hyun said. No warrior could. But I am not a warrior. I am a soldier. And soldiers do not fight for glory. They fight to win. The silence in the White Room stretched on for what felt like hours. Hyun could see the aliens trying to understand what he had told them. Their cultures had prepared them for many things, but not for this. Finally, Admiral Wisp spoke, his voice like wind through broken glass. You speak of millions of deaths as if they were statistics. They are statistics, Hyun replied. Every war is mathematics in the end. How many of your people can you afford to lose? How many of the enemy must die for you to achieve your objectives? How much damage can you inflict compared to how much you receive? Commander Ixolth's 12 arms coiled and uncoiled nervously. But those were living beings. They had families, dreams, purposes. So did my wife, Hyun said quietly. So did my daughter. So did every human who died when your people attacked Earth. War is not about being fair to the enemy. War is about making sure your own people survive. He leaned forward as much as his restraints would allow. You want more numbers? Let me tell you about the Sorid mining facility on Titan. War Leader Thox's scales darkened to a deep red. The Titan facility was destroyed by terrorists using cowardly tactics. It was destroyed by one human engineer with a wrench and some basic knowledge of gas pressure systems, Hyun corrected. That human was me. The memory was still vivid in his mind. The Saurid Empire had built a massive mining operation on Saturn's largest moon. They were extracting methane and other gases to fuel their war machine. The facility employed over 200,000 Saurid workers and was protected by a fleet of warships. The facility was built inside Titan's atmosphere, Hyun explained. Saurid technology is very advanced, but it has one weakness. Your people evolved on a high-gravity world with a thick atmosphere. You build everything to be strong and solid. Of course, Thok growled. Saurid construction is the finest in the galaxy. It is also inflexible, Hyun said. Your engineers never learned to build things that could adapt to changing conditions. When I got inside your facility, I found exactly what I expected. Rigid gas processing systems with no safety redundancies. Getting to Titan had been a nightmare. Mission. Hyun had hidden inside a cargo container for 3 weeks, breathing recycled air and eating nutrition paste, while smugglers transported him through Saurid space. The container had been labeled as machine parts, bound for the mining facility. Spent 2 days studying your gas processing systems. The facility was extracting methane from Titan's atmosphere and compressing it into liquid fuel. Millions of tons of highly pressurized gas flowing through a network of pipes and storage tanks. What did you do? Tekvar asked, his mechanical voice buzzing with something that might have been fear. I loosened one bolt, Hyun said simply. Just one, on a pressure release valve in the main processing chamber. Thok's eyes widened. That would not cause significant damage. One small leak in a system that size. One small leak in a pressurized gas system creates a chain reaction, Hyun explained. The pressure differential causes other seals to fail. Those failures create more pressure imbalances. Within minutes, the entire system begins to tear itself apart. He could still remember the sound. First, a small hissing noise as gas began to escape from the loose valve. Then a louder rushing sound as the pressure imbalance caused other systems to fail. Then the deep, rumbling roar as millions of tons of compressed gas began to expand rapidly. The explosion was visible from Earth, Hyun said. It created a crater on Titan's surface over 50 kilometers wide. The shockwave shattered every building within 200 kilometers of the facility. War leader Thok's proud posture had collapsed. 200,000 workers? All dead because of one bolt? All dead because your engineers never considered what would happen if their systems failed, Hyun corrected. Human engineers always assume that everything will eventually break. We build redundancies and safety systems. Your people assumed their technology was perfect. The aliens were beginning to understand something fundamental about human thinking. Humans expected failure. They planned for disaster. They assumed that anything that could go wrong eventually would go wrong. But that was not your largest operation, was it? Captain Jexra asked, her crystal form flickering weakly. No, Hyun admitted. My largest single operation was the Nexari hive mind network. Every alien in the room went very still. The Nexari hive mind was legendary throughout the galaxy. It connected billions of crystal beings across hundreds of worlds, allowing them to share thoughts and knowledge instantly across interstellar distances. The hive mind network was supposed to be impenetrable, Jexra whispered. Our greatest technological achievement. No outside force could access it. No outside force could access it directly, Hyun agreed. But every network has interfaces, connection points where individual minds link to the collective, and every interface can be compromised if you understand how it works. The mission had taken him 6 months to plan and 2 years to execute. He had needed to learn Nexari technology from the ground up, studying captured crystal devices and interrogating prisoners. Most importantly, he had needed to understand how the Nexari mind actually worked. The key was understanding that your hive mind is not just a communication system, Hyun explained. It is a shared consciousness. When one Nexari thinks a thought, every other Nexari connected to the network experiences that thought. Knowledge, emotions, even sensory input gets shared instantly. This is basic Nexari biology, Jexra said. What does it have to do with your attack? Everything, Hyun said, because it meant that if I could introduce the right kind of information into the network, every Nexari connected to it would experience that information simultaneously. He remembered the device he had built. It looked like a standard Nexari communication crystal, but inside it contained something very different. A pattern of data designed to overload the neural pathways of any crystal being that tried to process it. I called it a logic bomb, Hyun said. A piece of information that the Nexari mind cannot properly understand. When a crystal being tries to process it, their neural pathways get caught in an infinite loop, like a computer program that never finishes running. How did you introduce this into our network? Jexra asked, though her voice suggested she was afraid of the answer. I waited for a large battle where many Nexari would be connected to the hive mind at once. The siege of Alpha Centauri. Over 3 million of your people were linked together, sharing tactical information and coordinating their attacks. The battle had been a disaster for humanity. The Nexari fleet had been systematically destroying human colonies throughout the Alpha Centauri system. Earth's forces were outnumbered and outgunned. I infiltrated one of your command ships and connected my device to a primary hive mind interface. The logic bomb spread through your network in seconds. The effect had been instantaneous and horrifying. Every Nexari connected to the hive mind had experienced the logic bomb simultaneously. Their minds had locked up, unable to process the contradictory information. They had fallen into comas that looked like death, but were actually worse. 3.2 million Nexari drones went offline permanently, Hyun said. Their bodies survived, but their minds were trapped in infinite loops. They became like living statues, aware but unable to think or move. Jexra's crystal form had gone completely black. You destroyed 3 million minds with a single attack. I ended the siege of Alpha Centauri and saved 12 human colonies, Hyun corrected. The method was irrelevant. The result was what mattered. Tekvar's mechanical head was shaking back and forth. These numbers cannot be accurate. No single individual could be responsible for so many deaths. I am not responsible for the deaths, Hyun said. Your empires are responsible for starting a war with humanity. I am just the tool that my people use to defend themselves. He looked around the room at 6 alien faces that were beginning to show something he had never seen before. Fear. Not fear of death in battle, which they understood. Fear of something much worse. Fear of an enemy that did not play by their rules. You asked for my kill count, Hyun said. So far I have told you about 4 operations, 4 out of hundreds, that I participated in over 15 years of war. Would you like me to continue? None of the aliens answered. They were too busy trying to process numbers that made their own proud kill counts look tiny by comparison. The orbital mirror array at Vega 7, Hyun continued anyway. 5 million Velikari civilians when their artificial sun went supernova. The Saurid breeding worlds at Proxima Centauri. 8 million eggs destroyed when I introduced a virus into their incubation systems. The Machine Collective Factory at Wolf 359. 10 million artificial intelligences wiped out when I uploaded a recursive deletion program into their central computers. The numbers kept coming, each one larger than the last. The aliens sat in stunned silence as Hyun recounted operation after operation, battle after battle, world after world. And those are just the operations where I can calculate specific casualty figures, Hyun finished. There were others where the numbers are harder to estimate. The 3-star systems we collapsed to create gravity barriers. The nebula we ignited to stop your supply lines. The black hole we destabilized to destroy your main fleet base. Admiral Wisp's gaseous form was barely visible now, as if he was trying to fade away on Tai. The silence lasted so long that Hyun began to wonder if the translator device had broken. The 6 aliens sat around their curved table like statues, each one lost in their own thoughts about what they had just heard. Finally, Commander Vextal spoke, his voice much quieter than before. 50 million. The words came out like a whisper. You have killed 50 million beings. At least, Hyun confirmed. The actual number is probably higher. Those are just the casualties I can directly trace to my actions. There are secondary effects, cascading failures, long-term consequences that are harder to calculate. War leader Thok's proud posture had completely collapsed. The massive lizard alien hunched in his chair like an old man. My entire clan has fought for honor for 1,000 years. All of our greatest warriors combined have not achieved even 1% of your... My what? Hyun asked. I do not know what to call it, Thok whispered. It is not battle. It is not war. It is something else entirely. Captain Jexra's crystal form flickered weakly. How do you live with such knowledge? How do you sleep knowing that 50 million beings are dead because of you? Hyun thought about the question seriously. It was one he had asked himself many times over the years, especially in the quiet hours when he was alone with his memories. I sleep by remembering why they died, he said finally. Your people came to my world. You attacked my cities. You killed my wife. You started a war that you thought would be easy to win because you believed humans were weak. His voice remained calm. But there was something underneath it now. Something cold and final. Every alien that died because of my actions died because their leaders chose to make war on humanity. I did not start this conflict. I just helped to finish it. Commander Ixelth's 12 arms writhed in distress. But surely you feel some regret, some guilt for the magnitude of destruction you have caused? I feel regret for many things, Hyun said. I regret that my wife died before she could see our daughter grow up. I regret that my daughter died before she could build the spaceships she dreamed about. I regret that millions of humans have died defending our worlds from your invasions. He paused, looking around the room at each alien face. But I do not regret defending my people. I do not regret using every tool and weapon and strategy available to ensure human survival. And I do not regret that your people have learned to fear the consequences of attacking Earth. Tekvar's mechanical head tilted to one side. Fear? You believe we fear humanity? I know you do, Hyun said. If you did not fear us, you would not have captured me for questioning. You would not have brought representatives from 6 different empires to interrogate one human soldier. You fear us because you finally understand what you are fighting. Admiral Wisp's gaseous form rippled with what might have been confusion. What are we fighting? You are fighting a species that has spent its entire history learning how to kill each other more efficiently, Hyun explained. For 10,000 years, humans have been perfecting the art of warfare. We have fought with sticks and stones, with swords and spears, with guns and bombs, with chemicals and diseases and nuclear fire. He thought about all the history lessons from his school days. Humans had been fighting wars since before they learned to write. Every generation had found new ways to kill their enemies faster and more efficiently. When your people attacked Earth, you thought you were fighting another warrior race like yourselves. You expected us to meet you in honorable battle, ship against ship, soldier against soldier. You thought war was about proving who was stronger and braver. Hyun smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You were fighting a species that had already learned how to kill entire planets. We just had not had a reason to do it before you arrived. The aliens were beginning to understand the true scope of their mistake. They had not just attacked another civilization. They had attacked the graduates of a 10,000-year university of warfare. But you cannot sustain such losses forever, Vextel said desperately. Your own people must be dying in these conflicts. Surely you are weakening yourselves with such brutal tactics. Human casualties in this war are less than 1% of alien casualties, Hyun said matter-of-factly. We learned long ago that the most efficient wars are the ones where the enemy dies and you do not. Every human military academy teaches the same basic principle. Victory through superior firepower applied from a safe distance. He thought about his old instructor, Colonel Park Min, who had taught strategy at the Korean War College. Park had always said that honor was what you talked about after you won. During the fighting, the only thing that mattered was making sure you went home alive. Your cultures admire warriors who die gloriously in battle, Hyun continued. Human culture admires soldiers who complete their missions and come home to their families. This creates very different approaches to warfare. Suddenly, alarms began, blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed on the walls of the White Room, and the translator device started crackling with interference. The aliens looked around in confusion, but Hyun remained calm. He had been waiting for this moment. What is happening? Jexera demanded, her crystal form flashing in panic. My rescue is arriving, Hyun said simply. Vextal's compound eyes widened. Impossible. This ship is in the middle of Velokari space, surrounded by our fleet. No human vessel could penetrate our defenses. You are correct, Hyun agreed. No human vessel could reach this ship undetected. That is why we did not send a vessel. The deck shuddered beneath their feet as something massive impacted the ship's hull. Emergency lighting activated, bathing the room in a red glow. Then what? Tekvar began, but he was interrupted by another impact, stronger than the first. Asteroids, Hyun said calmly. 17 of them, actually, each one hollowed out and filled with nuclear warheads. They have been drifting toward this ship for the past 6 months, hidden among the normal space debris in this system. The aliens stared at him in horror as the truth dawned on them. You planned this? Ixolth whispered. Your capture was not an accident. Of course not, Hyun said. Did you really think a human ship would just happen to break down in the perfect position for you to capture it? Did you think I would just happen to be the only survivor? Another impact, and this time the lights flickered off for several seconds. Before the emergency power kicked in, my orders were to infiltrate this ship and gather intelligence about your fleet movements and technology. The interrogation was just a convenient way to learn about your military culture and strategic thinking. War leader Thok snarled and lunged forward, but his restraint field activated, holding him back. You used us. You made us reveal our thinking, patterns, and tactical doctrines. I did, Hyun confirmed. And in return, I told you exactly what you wanted to know. My kill count. The truth about how humans fight wars. The reasons why your people are losing this conflict. The ship shuddered again, and this time they could hear the sound of metal tearing somewhere deep in the hull. The asteroids are not trying to rescue me, Hyun explained as chaos erupted around them. They are trying to destroy this ship and everything on it, including me. But you will die too, Admiral Wisp gasped. Yes, Hyun said simply. That was always part of the plan. Vextal was frantically trying to contact his bridge crew, but the communication systems were failing. Why would you sacrifice yourself? What purpose does your death serve? This ship contains the command and control systems for your entire fleet, Hyun said. Your intelligence files, your tactical computers, your communication networks. Destroying it will cripple your ability to coordinate attacks on human colonies. The deck tilted sharply as another asteroid found its target. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear the sound of atmosphere venting into space. More importantly, Hyun continued, this ship contains the leadership of 6 different alien empires. Your deaths will create chaos in your governments for months while new leaders fight for power. He looked around the room at the 6 aliens who were now scrambling to escape their restraints. And finally, your deaths will send a message to every other alien race in the galaxy, a message about what happens to species that make war on humanity. The lights went out completely, leaving them in darkness except for the emergency glow strips along the floor. The artificial gravity was starting to fail, and objects began floating around the room. You want to know my final kill count? Hyun asked as the ship began to tear itself apart around them. Add 6 more to the total, 6 representatives of the species that killed my family. In the darkness, he could hear the aliens struggling against their restraints, trying desperately to escape. But the restraint systems were powered by the same grid as the ship's main systems, and that grid was failing as nuclear fire consumed the vessel's infrastructure. This is madness, Vextal screamed over the sound of collapsing bulkheads. No rational being would sacrifice themselves like this. You still do not understand, Hyun said quietly, his voice somehow carrying over the chaos. Humans are not rational beings. We are survival machines. We will do whatever it takes to ensure our species continues to exist. The final asteroid struck the ship's reactor core. For a brief moment, the room was filled with light brighter than a star. You wanted to know how many we would kill to protect our people, Hyun said as the light core